Welcome to Practical Changemakers, a carbon positive story. I'd like to acknowledge that we're speaking to you today on Wajak Nungabuja and to pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging. My name is Louise Tarrier and I'm the CEO of Carbon Positive Australia. Our mission is to empower and encourage everyone in Australia to take action that revitalises and improves the health of landscapes and communities. We do this via our carefully selected Australian tree planting projects and by providing inspiring education programs. Through our work, we get to talk to and spend time with people who are working for the health of our environment every single day. These practical change makers and leaders don't often make the headlines, but the work that they do is vital in our changing world. It's my pleasure to introduce some of them to you and for you to hear more about their work, to be inspired and to find out ways you can also become a practical change maker. My guest today is Amy Rankin. Amy is a wild, wonderful and friendly human who cares deeply about the planet. She has an eccentric, eclectic sense of humour and somehow manages to relate to everyone she meets. And I can totally agree with that. She has multiple encyclopedias, a whole box set, if you will, worth of knowledge stored inside her brain. And she's spawned many tiny humans. How many children do you have?
2 and 2 stepkids.
Oh, wonderful. She always wants to inspire others to get excited about plants and she'll do anything she can to empower you. She does much and asks nothing, embracing the weird and the wonderful life that life has to offer. So she's an enthusiastic volunteer, event coordinator and a board member for Activate Tree Planting. Amy believes that Activate Tree Planting has the magic for creating change, and I would certainly agree with her on that. So, Amy, I'd love you to introduce yourself a little bit more to everybody and just tell them about who you are and what inspires you. And I know there is so much that inspires you. So.
Oh, wow. I was not expecting you to splice together the sensible and the funny intro. That's so weird to hear yourself talked about. Oh, gosh, where to start? I am from a sleepy village in southwest England where I was an only child with a disabled dad. So I spent a lot of time hanging out in nature, just sort of wandering around rivers by myself and picking daisies and dandelions and in a veggie garden at home. Luckily for me, the Eden Project, if you've heard of this, a sustainable tourist attraction in the UK, was built literally a kilometre from my house. So I watched it be built and then...
incredible place that is, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And for those that don't know, there's literally a rainforest in England inside a bubble of a running waterfall. And it's just fantastic. There's actually a Perth exhibition there now as well in the Mediterranean biome. And my job there was for quite a few years teaching the kids sustainable art, dressing up as a monkey and walking around the rainforest talking about the bananas and the rubber trees.
So when the monkey comes in now, I'm thinking, why would you dress as a monkey? But yeah, in the rainforest, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we'd pick the plantains and the bananas and I'd talk about all the sustainability and all the different climates and recycling and stuff with kids. But I wasn't meant to be in England. I just was never meant to be there. So off I went as a 20-year-old and lived in Thailand for a year teaching scuba diving, as we all have those early adult years out. And then I found myself in Perth. And I spent 10 years working in the Navy as a commercial diver, teaching submarine escape training, which is far from trees and far from anywhere that I am now. But I'm grateful for that journey. And here we land ourselves now, me running a gardening business, working with kids, helping out at schools, talking about vegetables and why plants are cool, and spending a lot of time as a volunteer for Activate Tree Planting, organising events in the Wheatbelt.
So tell us a little bit more about that, what Activate Tree Planting does and how it gets involved in the Wheatbelt and why the Wheatbelt as well, because I think that's really interesting, why you've chosen that area.
Well, I'm the baby of the group. I've only been involved, this will be my 4th year, and my 2nd year doing a large amount of the event coordination and being on the board. Why Activate? Gosh, it's just... So Activate has been going this is its 23rd year.
Wow, I didn't realise it's actually been around that long.
It has, and it's evolved a fair bit over the years. It started at Perth City Farm in 2000, and originally was just quite small, sort of grassroots ad hoc events run by youth groups, and a lot of art and music involved, quite often in sort of places like York and not so far out. And it's gradually evolved bigger and bigger. And the last few years, we've doubled every year since I've been involved. It's just crazy.
So for those who've never heard of it, tell them what does an Activate tree planting event look like? What would you, if you were going to go along, what would happen?
Well, hopefully you get to come this year. So we basically take a bunch of people who out to the Wheatbelt, 2-3 hours away, quite often on buses, depending on COVID restrictions. So we reduce car use, we get everyone out there on a bus. We greet everyone with music and entrance, and we quite often have our wonderful elders there doing a welcome and a smoking ceremony. Yep. And the main sort of purpose of Activate is regenerating and planting trees and shrubs and bushes back into degraded wheatbelt land that's been affected by erosion, salinity, and overclearing, loss of diversity and stuff over the years. But we package it up with art, music, beautiful organic food, wonderful community, and just a fantastic weekend. And we have kids activities going on. There's always face painting. Last year we had a onesie party. There's always marshmallows around the fire. But everybody is a volunteer. So ticket prices are as little as we can possibly make it to cover the costs. Because we really appreciate the fact that everyone is coming out there to work and to plant trees, and everyone helps do the dishes, everyone has a job to do, and it is just the most incredible family once we all get out there and get these trees in the ground.
And what a wonderful way to all come together and actually be part of that tree planting event. So you get to enjoy the music and company and that sense of community whilst also, planting a tree.
It's so magic, because some people have never been out there before. I mean, to be honest, there's not much reason to go out to some of these places in the Wheatbelt. There's one of the areas we go to is Gavin, and there's only 2 people that live there.
It's very, very small, isn't it?
There's nothing really that you wouldn't go there on a holiday or anything. So to get people out, seeing the Wheatbelt, and they change, once they put those trees in the ground, they go home a different person.
And I think it's that connection to place, isn't it? You can kind of bring yourself into place. When you've planted a tree, there's something very special about that suddenly that place has a reason to go and get visited again, doesn't it? Because your tree's there that you've planted. Yeah, and you feel responsible. And I found so far with the farmers that we've connected with, they kind of become our farms. we feel part of that farm as well, and there's really strong connection working with these farmers who are also often quite surprised of 200 plus people with bright face paint and onesies and a lot of loud music, planting trees by hand in their farm, and they're blown away by it, and they always want us back. Yeah, and we love the work that you do at Carbon Positive Australia, so we quite often fund the trees that you put in the ground for some of your projects, and I know particularly we've done that at Narrogin, and there are plans to do more of that this year with you all, and obviously come along and take part in the events as well, because we know how special it is when people do get connected to trees and to the land. So I suppose if I was to ask you a question, what's your major role in those weekends? Is it mostly the organising? How do you get involved personally?
Oh gosh, well, it's quite a big job putting these events together. And as I said, we're all volunteers, so none of us get paid at all. There are about 5 of us that spend a lot of time all year round on looking after Activate and working with the community and planning these events. You know, there's grant writing, there's logistics, there's insurance, and all of those sort of more boring stuff.
Doesn't it?
Absolutely.
These things just don't happen by magic. And I know particularly things like the food and all of that kind of thing, because you provide food for everybody as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So closer to the events, once all of that stuff is, well, it goes on all the time, but closer to the events, when we start to panic a little bit, we bring in some more of our community. So we have a fantastic crew that we name the Kitchen Witches. So they are all over the food. So we safe there that they go and source food for us. Often people will donate beautiful organic food for us. And they put together the meals and they do all of the prep, and they have the team working hard in the kitchen to make sure that we're fed the whole weekend. And then we have sort of a team that are fantastic volunteers that'll come a few days early and help us set up, and they'll rush around and, you know, buy extra toilet paper and make sure that we've got fuel for the generators and that sort of stuff, and help us put all the decorations up. And then the rest of our community all chip in as well. So once they're there, everyone will help with the events. We have we call it the magic hat. So when you arrive at the event, you pull out a job, and that might be, keeping the toilet paper in the toilets, or it might be helping wash the planting equipment after, before we go to a different location. It might be helping with the kitchen or doing the bins, because we have quite a hefty recycling system going on. So ultimately, our events, we try and keep as sustainable as possible, and as, everything we use is recycled, and we try and keep it sort of zero waste and as much reduced as we can as is possible when you go to a place where there's often no power and no facilities. So we do our best, and we're always improving. And this year we are a lot more organised, so I'm so excited to be here and already have quite a few plans locked away. We're coming up to tree planting season.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about those plans. So, for our listeners, thinking about possibly a little bit late this year, because I know that you get booked up pretty quickly, don't you? These events are almost like the watch events in WA. It's people are signing up for them before they're even.
I wish we could have everyone there, but there's a real balance with keeping the events at their key values, keeping them small and sustainable, and not losing that family, community aspect there. So our big events will have sort of maximum of about 250. So that's including the musicians and the volunteers and all the sort of workers. And I don't think we've got the manpower to go any bigger at the moment, but we would love to. So we're always calling out for more volunteers. But this year we have 3 amazing events planned, of which 2, thank you so much to Carbon Positive for helping us fund the trees and find the trees. That's quite hard at the moment.
It has been hard, hasn't it?
Yeah.
This year it's been extremely difficult out there to just source the number of trees required because of the influx, I think, of tree planting that's happening, particularly here in Western Australia. But, obviously supporting community events with trees like this is so important, because otherwise you wouldn't, if you're not planting trees, then you're not doing what you're setting out to kind of achieve.
Yeah, and I hope it is that reason as well. I mean, I suspect that, the pandemic and the lack of workers has reduced the nursery's capacity, but hopefully we're getting
lots
through
of
that.
Stuff going out there at the moment, and that's reducing our capacity. But I think hopefully as we move into next year, those resource issues will disappear a little bit, and there'll be trees freed up for it.
We can throw some bigger events and more events.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
But this year, we're kicking off again in No Man's Lake, which is in the Shire of Narrogin, which Carbon Positive funded the trees for last year. So we're going back to Angus Armstrong's farm to plant about 60,000 there this year. And our goal there is over the next few years to create sort of shelter belts and bring life and biodiversity back towards the lake. There's a couple of lakes there that are quite special and have a lot of migratory bird populations. So we want to create some land bridges and diversity for the wildlife to move around and get back to those lakes.
Yeah, and that's so important, isn't it? Because I think one of the issues in the Wheatbelt is because so much land has been cleared, those belts and ability for wildlife and nature to actually have their homes there has been severely restricted. So having these belts or corridors there is really helpful for those communities of birds as well.
Everything we do has an impact, from how we commute to work to what we buy at the grocery store. Our lifestyle choices are contributing to our carbon footprint. Did you know Australians have one of the highest personal carbon footprints in the world? The good news is we can change that. Measuring your footprint is easy with our carbon footprint calculator. Custom designed for Australians, it gives you an accurate footprint calculation so you can really know your number. You'll also learn practical everyday ways to reduce and offset the impact of your lifestyle to help combat climate change. You can calculate your footprint at carbonpositiveaustralia.org.au/calculate. For over 21 years, Carbon Positive Australia has planted trees and sequestered carbon. Our tree planting increases canopy cover and biodiversity, and also creates positive climate health and well-being outcomes. We take a nature-led approach and are passionate about providing ecologically sensitive planting that protects our environment. We only plant biodiverse native species and specialise in working with landholders to create innovative solutions for carbon planting. We are renowned for our research and monitoring of ecological outcomes. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can plant trees with us by donating at carbonpositiveaustralia.org.au/donate.
Yeah, and I mean also it acts as windbreak and shelter. I mean, you look at some of these sheep out in these barren lands. What are they eating and how are they sheltering? It's just brutal out there when the weather's really bad. Like recently when we were there and there was the fire.
Yeah, and that is, that was an issue this year, wasn't it? The fire went through one of those particular properties that we've been planting in previous years. And I think the other, I know also at Gavin there was a big sort of wind cyclone type event that went through there.
It was a tornado. Yeah. The tornado wiped out the farmer's house.
Yeah, which, and that, what little tree cover was there was destroyed, wasn't it, as part of that? So, bringing this planting and getting the community involved in this restoration work is hugely important, and I think it makes the farmers feel supported as well in what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And those trees that did get damaged by the fire this year, luckily, I mean, they're eucalypts, so they should actually grow back. Yeah,
it's wonderful, isn't it? I mean, aren't our plants here just so special that they've got this real resilience?
Oh, it's just, I can't, as much as it was sad, I can't wait to get back down and watch them grow. We've already had some amazing photos through from Angus of the trees regenerating themselves after such a terrible, brutal fire, which also the weather continued for another 3 weeks after that, and they still haven't had any rain down there.
Yeah, it's been quite, I mean, for those farmers that have been, particularly impacted by this, it's been nothing but devastating. I mean, we've lost sheep, we've lost buildings, and just to have that happen is hugely devastating for family and community.
It is, but this got dark. So the good thing was, obviously it was terrible, but watching our community come together and, when we shared images of what had happened to the planting site from the fire, they were like, right, everyone, let's get there and plant even more this year and next year. So
exactly.
Yeah, and we're already planning for a bigger next year down there.
And I think that's one of the really important things of these types of community groups, because what it does is it builds resilience with individuals in that group and builds resilience in the community. Because exactly as you just said, people look at it and go, hey, we can do something. It gives you that feeling of empowerment back, doesn't it? You can actually make a change.
Yeah. Oh, it's something to, and to look forward to. And we all, we're like, winter's coming, it's planting time. So that's our first event. That's just one of the events, the 60,000 down in the Shire of Narrogin. Our second event is a record breaker for us by quite a long way. We are going up to a new site in Narrogin, which is the Shire of Wildcatcham.
Yep.
And there's a wonderful lady there, Chelsea, who's got a plot of land there which has been destocked, and they've stopped cropping for quite a few years now. And they had a go at planting some sandalwood a few years ago, but she wants to really make an impact and make a change up there and set up a sort of retreat educational space over the next few years. So we are going to put a casual 126,000.
Just 126,000 trees. That's not many.
Over about 2.5 days.
Wow.
Yes. And not only is it 126,000, which is double what we've done before in the same period of time, there's 53 different species going in for incredible biodiversity. So it's going to be...
Oh, it's fantastic.
Imagine what it's going to look like in 20 years.
We talk about this, don't we? And it's a theme actually. It's been running through the recent podcasts that we've actually done. We're doing this now, but we're actually doing it for future generations, aren't we? So it's not, for many of us, we won't see the results of this in our lifetimes, but we're just we're still doing it anyway.
Yeah, things do grow a little slower in the Wheatbelt, but some of our projects from a couple of years ago, with the technology increase, we've had drones there the last few years, and the photos are just amazing, and the growth is amazing already. Just in, we just did 8 years, at the same spot in Gavin, and the photos from the beginning and then 8 years later are quite dramatic. So that we do get to see the change. Obviously, our kids are gonna be able to say
the benefits. Is probably what I'm kind of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll actually obviously see some of the trees grow. Well, I hope I live long enough to see some of the trees grow. But I think it's for what we're doing though. It's for our future generations in terms of the ecosystems that they'll then grow up with, rather than the degraded land.
Yeah.
Experience in our lifetimes.
And I hope it. We have a really large kid focus at Activate as well. I personally have generally 4 there myself, which, they're generally the dirtiest and the most involved, and often quality control on the tree planting, because they're so used to being around tree planting pretty much every weekend, all winter. So
tell me a little bit more, because I know when we spoke before, we talked about there's a particular youth group that are actually leading one of the projects this year.
Well, sneaking into the third event here. We're jumping around a little bit, but so we've got the record breaker, and then the third event is a new thing for us. So one of the original goals of Activate was to inspire youth and have youth involvement as much as possible. So this year we are sort of mentoring a younger crew. They've named themselves the Saplings, Activate Saplings. And young, I mean early 20s, And they're actually taking the lead on the third event this year, which is being held at my farm, but also the planting up the road is at a vegan permaculture animal sanctuary, which is very exciting.
Wow.
And they are absolutely all on board with that, to host a vegan event. And we have 20,000 trees going in there again, thanks to Carbon Positive. And they're going in a heavily saline affected creek.
Right.
So they're sort of going to border the creek such to try and assist with the salinity and get some life back into this quite barren paddock that's there. So we had a meeting. Well, they came down to check it out last week, and they are just so excited. So they're going to be running their own fundraisers. They're going to be sorting out their own food. They're sorting out their own merch, which they're really excited about, and their decorations. And I get to sit back and watch. And there's quite a few of us. Yeah, we don't have to do much for this event. We don't have to worry about emceeing or OH&S briefs or anything like this. It's exciting. I might get to plant a few more trees. And then next year, maybe they'll take on a bigger event and we can help another younger crew come through.
And that again is, it's not just seeding the trees for future generations, it's also seeding the project capability, isn't it, for future generations as well. So I love that you've got this way of thinking about things that's very intergenerational, that's very, attractive to people who want to come in and actually feel that connection. And I know in particular you have your own special place out in the Wheatbelt. I'm going to say Green Duck Farm. Is that the right name for it?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Green Duck Farm.
Well, this is quite a new thing, inspired by Activate. So my wonderful partner Shane and I have both been involved with Activate for a few years now, and in our personal lives quite heavily involved in land care and horticulture and all the other tree things already. Wanted to move away from suburbia and go more into working with the land. And we were toying over vegetables and market gardening and herb farming and these sort of things. And we were both just drawn to something a little bit harder. I mean, to me, that seemed a bit easy. Yeah. I think I'd get bored of growing vegetables after a few years, and so we ended up with a small chunk of land, just an hour down Albany Highway in the Shire of Wandering, and it's 260 acres. So it's a big jump from a suburban block.
I was going to say, a little bit different from your average back garden.
There's a lot of fire breaks and a lot of fencing to do. But it's a place where we can obviously host Activate and bring people to that fringe of the Wheatbelt a little easier than a 3-hour trek out to Gabon. Yeah. So it's a hub, I guess, for us to use. But the goal of Green Duck Farm is to bring people closer to nature and back to nature and education. So it's a place for us to experiment with, more modern practices and more regenerative, sustainable practices along the regenerative ag and permaculture sort of principles, and teach that and show it and bring kids there to get muddy and go on bug hunts and fungi walk and wildflower hunts, these sort of things. And if people want to come and just go camping, then they can. But if they want to learn about the compost toilet and the compost shower and the recycled, tip-built roundhouses and crazy structures that are probably going to appear there, then they can choose that adventure and they can engage further. And hopefully in the future we'll be running some workshops and having more events there.
And I know, I was amazed when I spoke to you. I mean, what you're creating there, you're creating it almost out of nothing. Most people, when they think, we're going to build somewhere and we're going to kind of go out and do this, they're talking about banking thousands and thousands of dollars to even begin. But you've just kind of taken this just gone for it. And I think you must be the queen of the recycled and the upcycled.
I'd love more people to join that queen. I don't know if I've ever thought of myself. That's a bit of a strange term, but so I guess it was so hard for us to get this block of land as two, average sort of people on a, not even middle class wage probably, on a small suburban house in a pretty rough suburb in Armidale. The bank didn't make it easy, and we had to go through quite a few loopholes and find some different pathways to get hold of this land. So it sort of became a bit of a goal to continue with this. Well, let's show everyone that you can do something crazy like this on no budget at all.
No budget at all.
Yeah. And I'm quite lucky because we've just had 10 weeks of verge collection in Armidale, which has been extremely fun. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do now with my I didn't have any spare time anyway, but now maybe my house in Armidale won't look like a junkyard as well as I've been pillaging from the side of the road, and Facebook Marketplace has been our best friend. But so far, yeah, we've managed to, the first thing we did was get a shed from a demolition site. We got secondhand solar panels that had been ripped off a roof. We got truck batteries and recycled pavers, and we got ourselves a little shed house that's off grid. And I think the total cost for that was just under $2,000.
Which is, I mean, it's absolutely incredible, isn't it? I mean, I don't think, for most people that they even would dream that you could do that. So the fact that you've not only dreamt it, but you've actually done it as well, it's certainly something quite incredible. But also, I think it's part of that teaching process, isn't it? Like you said, to show other people that actually it is perfectly possible to do this.
Yeah, and it's exciting. And I'm also fitter than I was in the Navy, I think, at the moment. It's a learning curve. Like I didn't know how to build, and we got hold of this really daggy old truck, I guess, that the aim was we could grab stuff off the side of the road and get it down there, or we could go get secondhand roof trusses and something. We had easy access to get building materials up and down, and this thing just keeps breaking. So now, okay, well, geez, I better learn how to fix it, and okay, well, we've got to wire these solar panels together, and we've got to work out that it's been wonderful. I now know how to build stuff out of pallets. And so far, we've only had this place since October. I mean, up until this point, we're just over 6 months. We're only there at weekends. I think we're up at about 50 days total that we've spent there. Yet to see rain. So we're on a big mission at the moment to get water tanks and roofing space up so we can capture some rain. So there's no water there. Yeah. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without our friends and people like the Activate community, who we just said, hey guys, help. We need a few hands on deck to help us put a roof on, and we'll cook food for you, and we'll put some music on, and can you come help? And they just love it, because they know they've got the space too. They'll be able to come there and enjoy the space and look at the beautiful trees.
And it's so inspirational to be able to build community, isn't it? I think that's, if we had to kind of look at the secret sauce of what Activate actually does and what you do, it is that building of community, isn't it? And building that resilience in community. Because it's those individuals who come together that actually make the event.
Oh, absolutely. And if you to ask, what's the most special thing about the events? It's that when we're there on the Friday and everyone starts rolling into the event space after, a day's work. So normally people don't arrive until, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night to put up their tents. Some of these people we haven't seen for a year. And just the joy of getting together again as that group, knowing that we're going to be planting into this, degraded ground and getting our hands dirty and doing it together. It's just, it's so wonderful. It's such a great feeling.
It is a special, I know when the team at Carbon Positive went along, they were like, that was the best bit, was the people. The tree planting is obviously absolutely amazing, but the best bit is getting together with people who want the same things that you do and want to make the changes. And so just for my last question to you, because we are kind of heading into time, although I could talk to you forever, because you've seen so many exciting things that you do just beyond even this that we haven't even touched today, is just to ask you, if you're speaking to someone, they may be thinking, wow, I'd love to get into something like this. I'd like to get involved, or I just feel like I would love that sense of community in my life. How do they get started?
Well, obviously, get in touch with Activate if they want to if they're interested in Activate tree planting. But there are so many local land care groups out there that do community plantings, just in Perth, and I know there are over east as well. So just start. Your phone will be listening. Just say, "Hey, tree planting," and you'll start getting these events popping up, and there'll be, coffee and tea down at the local wetland, and go and plant, and just go. And if you want to start something yourself, just go for it. I don't have any formal qualifications in environmental science or anything like that. I can't tell you all of the scientific names for all of the trees. And most of the Activate community are from such a varied background. A lot of them couldn't either, but that's not what the goal is here. We all have this passion and this want to regenerate the land and help heal the land and do it together as a team. So just give it a go. Just give it a go and take your kids and get dirty. Get your hands dirty.
I love that. Just go out and get muddy. That sounds like a really good ending to our talk today. And thank you so much, Amy. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And you are definitely, as I said, one of the most inspirational people that I know. And good luck this coming planting season with everything that Activate's doing. We'll be watching closely and hopefully attending some of the events too. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.